Welcome to this guide of writing persuasively. So the task is to write an article for your school magazine to persuade pupils to eat more healthily. Okay, so it begins, Britain has the unhealthiest teenagers in the Western world, exclamation mark. Why? Question mark. Is it because we are a poverty-ridden nation? Is it because we have an illiterate, ignorant population? Is it because we lack the resources to provide nutritional food? Questions are used to engage from the start, as well as an exclamative to engage your reader at the beginning with a very strong view. The author then goes on to respond to those questions, which is quite a good way to start. It says where you stand on the issue immediately. No. It is because not only do we fail to exercise enough, more importantly, we fail to eat properly. We need to take action fast, and we're better to start that than in our schools. What it's done here is express views really clearly. We fail is a really strong word. Failure is huge, and there are other elements that are just incredibly strong throughout, which you'll see. Why eat healthy food at school, I hear you say. The reader is directly addressed there with the personal pronoun you. Well, where do I start? Of course, if you are happy to be a hippo, eager to be an elephant, or willing to become a whale, ignore the rest of this article. So you've got a rule of three and alliteration there. Remember your De Forest when it comes to writing persuasively, and try and squeeze in as many devices as you possibly can. If, however, you have the slightest shred of self-respect, again, alliteration with the S's there, read and take note. The exclamative says that they have to do it, they've got no choice in the matter, and so it guides your reader to read on. First and foremost, a healthy diet will prolong your life. First and foremost sets this out as a really important point of view, but it also suggests that there's more to come. Cholesterol, clogged arteries, and flabby hearts mean only one thing. Your life expectancy is not something any insurance man would bet on. The exclamative here is used as a shock factor for your audience. Feel free to use conjunctions to start sentences in your persuasive piece, just for impact. So things like, and it's not as if the life you do have will be all that pleasant as you wheeze your bulk around, becoming less and less mobile. So there's repetition of the less and less there, just to emphasise the point. And there's also a sense of humour in the sort of exaggeration of this image. It's no good looking back regretfully once you are too ashamed to look in the mirror and have to order your clothes from Tense R Us. The reason it's humorous is because of the audience, so it's to persuade school pupils, and so it can be slightly sarcastic and humorous, so be careful about what your audience is and who you get asked to write for. Okay, so it says, if the long-term health problems don't worry you, what about the present? A poor diet will not only make you podgy and considerably less attractive to the opposite sex, it will also affect your complexion and appearance. Try to do this with your points of view, so give something and then say, and also, okay, so you're adding on top of the point that you've given. What chance of a date if your face looks like a join the dots competition? Again, rhetorical question and humour to engage. And it's not just the physical effects you need to worry about. Research shows that these so-called foods are stuffed with millions of additives and e-numbers. Millions is an exaggeration here. The single word wonderful with the exclamative is almost sarcastic and humorous at the same time. You can now have your own mood-enhancing drugs in a bun. Okay, the humour is furthered. So don't feel afraid of emphasising something too much or exaggerating something too much. Seriously though, these chemical nasties really do affect your moods and concentration, so the reader's attention is being grabbed with the humour and the rhetorical questions, and now you can afford to include something more serious. They can make you hyperactive, and this can lead to uncharacteristic bad behaviour. So you've got alliteration there with the bad behaviour. They can affect your ability to work and learn, which in the long run may result in a poor grade. Manufacturers don't care about this, but you should. You can see there that they've made a slight slip in spelling, punctuation and grammar. Generally though, throughout this piece the spelling, punctuation and grammar is sound, and the vocabulary is really varied throughout. So in terms of this paragraph, it's said exactly what the consequences will be of not following the advice given. And that's definitely something you should do to persuade, to give the negative effects of something that might happen. Okay, so indeed, manufacturers are happy to exploit customers at every opportunity. They think nothing of producing burgers and sausages made from the scraps, skins, tails, intestines, and any other unwanted piece of an animal and calling it meat. So there you've got a whole list of things that might be contained. Slight exaggeration, but it certainly serves to engage and create a really vivid image. They think nothing of pumping water, salt, sugar and chemicals into food at dangerous levels. So although you can use rule of 3 for the most part, you should try and use listing wherever you can to add emphasis and details to your arguments. They think nothing of using any advertising gimmick going to manipulate us from an early age into a lifetime of junk food dependency. The greatest thing about healthy food, however, is the fact that it tastes so brilliant and natural. Okay, so there's a real sort of contrast here. We've talked about this before, but contrast in persuasive pieces can really serve to create a really good argument, because you've provided the alternative, and so your points become even more persuasive. Yes, I know you whose taste buds have been ruined by lethal cocktail of grease, salt and artificial flavourings, rule 3, may not think so at first, but give it a try. In no time at all your palate will return and become more sophisticated. It's so embarrassing to go to restaurants or be on holiday abroad with your friends if one of them is too afraid to eat anything but junk food. So go on, give healthy food a try. You'll be fitter, longer living, better looking and more in touch with your feelings. You'll feel the benefits quickly and probably save a lot of money at the same time. You'll no longer be a slave to food, but able to make your own choices. You know it makes sense. So they've actually given all the positives of healthy food, which is a contrast to all the negative language that we had before, but just serves to persuade. So moving from all the negative, horrible things into the positive can really, really work. The range of vocabulary in this piece is fantastic. Lots of exclamatives. Rhetorical questions used towards the start of the piece, and then get a more serious note and the consequences towards the end. And you need kind of a closing line to secure the persuasion. And remember, you've chosen to start it with the conjunction and to make it even more persuasive. If your idea, possessive pronoun there, your idea of food heaven is a burger and chips, chicken nuggets, or a bag of crisps, rule of 3, then heaven may come sooner than you think. Exclamation mark to engage, and you've also got the word heaven there used to exaggerate. Okay, so that's a persuasive piece. Think carefully about the structure. So lots of rhetorical questions towards the start, lots of direct addressing to draw them in, humour if you can, and depending on the audience if it's appropriate. Otherwise, try and aim for similes, metaphors, personification, or create images through appealing to the senses. So you're engaging the reader in a lot of the same ways that you might have done in your descriptive pieces when you wrote those earlier on in the year. Once you're done with the rhetorical questions and you know you've engaged your audience, you can then move on to the more serious aspects of the topic. Use exclamatives to engage, and exaggeration is great for just continuing to engage your audience. So lots of devices. Remember the forest, okay, and go through the forest and try and use as many as you can. Think carefully about your vocabulary and you've cracked it. Okay, good luck with writing persuasively in the exam.